You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentek Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentek Consultants. I am Jim, your silly and pointlessly talking host, and with me, as always, is my partner.
It's Rocco.
But that's okay. Rocco,
you sound overly happy this morning, Jim.
Well, I'm happy this morning because we have guests. I don't have to just talk to you this time. I'm bored of having to talk to you. I talk to you all day, every day, man.
That's just mean.
Hey, we need some interesting folks in here. They're tired of hearing us just babble.
Are you saying I'm not interesting?
No answer? No comment? I'm not going there, man. All right. I have to live and work with him every day, guys. I'm sorry. It's all right, but we do have special guests on the show with us today. We have Tim Yarris, who is the Civil 3D Product Manager from Autodesk. He is back on the podcast with us once again. And he's brought Ramesh Sridharan, whose name I promise I just butchered. Ramesh, how do you pronounce your last name?
Ramesh Sridharan. You're close.
I was close. I gave it a shot, but I knew I was going to butcher it. So, Ramesh is the product manager for the Autodesk Infraworks team. And both Tim and Ramesh are here today because they want to talk to us about the new Geotechnical Modeler for Civil 3D 2022. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time to be on today's show. I think that's especially true since Tim's been here before and he knows exactly what he was walking into and the knuckleheads that we are. So thanks again for being here, guys.
Glutton for punishment. What can I say?
Lucky to say he took the abuse the first time and wanted more. All right. So, all right, look, before we get into talking about the Geotechnical Modeler, let's find out about the two of you guys, right? And what your background is and what you guys do over at Autodesk. So Tim, why don't you explain to the folks what exactly a Civil 3D Product Manager is? Right, what do you handle for Autodesk, and how did you get there?
Okay. So I guess my primary job is to work really closely with our customers to understand what their real requirements are and how we can improve Civil 3D to help them meet their goals. So I particularly have an eye on the big picture of the Civil 3D roadmap, just as Ramesh does on the Infraworks side. And then along with looking after each of those big products, each of us has, you could say, a number of kind of equally important side quests, if you will. Yeah. So I look after Project Explorer, grading optimization, and some other strategic initiatives that we have going on here as well. And I guess a big part of Ramesh and my job is balancing the needs of key industries, like, for example, geotechnical, land development, roads and highways, that kind of stuff. And with also kind of keeping an eye on the big products, big picture of where we want our products to go strategically. And then so as far as how I got into this role, I've been with Civil 3D on the Civil 3D product team for just under 16 years in a bunch of different roles. Started out writing, helping tutorials and designing portions of the UI. But I'm really happy with the product manager gig because it gives me the opportunity to really work closely with a lot of different customers and really dig deep into the problems that they're trying to solve. So it's an exciting role.
Nice. But no responsibility at all then, right? Just sitting and relaxing.
No, things all surf the internet. It's all YouTube all day. It's awesome.
That's awesome. All kinds of cats with and dog faces, all kinds of good stuff. So, Ramesh, let me ask you then: how did your career path lead you to the Infraworks Product Manager position, and what other products and modules in the Autodesk stable do you kind of oversee and work with?
Absolutely. So most of my career was in the infrastructure engineering. From different aspects of it, but mostly on the reality capture usage. So I was part of a company. We're getting a lot of recap data, automatic extraction, things like that. That's how I became part of the Autodesk team about 8 years back. Best decision of my life. Since then, I played different roles in Autodesk, similar to Tim. Like he nicely mentioned, we wear different hats to make sure we cover different aspects of the infrastructure products so that the customer gets the full benefit. There is nothing called a silo, one product vision, right? It's everything relates to everything else more than one ways, actually. So that's when we end up doing multiple things and things like that. Currently, I am serving as three major ones. One is the product manager for the Infraworks product. For those who not heard, Infraworks the best, one of the best 3D visualization, conceptual, preliminary design product in the market.
It is, no doubt about that. It really is. It's. We were saying before we jumped here on the podcast. I am always impressed with what you can do in Infraworks. It's an amazing system.
Thanks to you. Thanks. Yeah, that feeds into nowadays we're adding more capabilities to it, so that can feed into the detailed design, that can fit into other aspects much easily, making it more easier for a user to use. And I'm also serving as a product manager for reality solutions. I took over that role recently. Now that the collection of reality data is more prevalent, every time I talk about the infrastructure project to any customer, the point cloud or something comes into the discussion one time or the other. I mean, come on, let's face it, drones are becoming more popular. It's just a matter of time. It's an household item like a TV or a phone, actually. Everybody carries.
Absolutely.
Everyone has a big model at their house. Yeah.
There you go. Get the model house, just hope they're not using it to spy on the neighbor's backyard. That's a whole other problem.
And even I was talking to one of the customers. It's actually a DOT customer. They were doing some work, and he found a issue with some of the handicap ramp. He literally took the phone and he snapped multiple pictures of the handicap ramp and uploaded to our recap photo, and he created a 3D model of that and showed to his boss or someone what's actually the problem in a 3D way. So it's becoming much easier to use. The reality collection itself, and the product obviously has to keep up with it. That sort of recap team does a phenomenal job on that. So I'm glad to be part of that team as well since this year. And then third, the topic of today is the Geotechnical Modeler. That is something, it came up last year or so. We might end up having a gap or something we need to work on, our customers need it. And that's when we started focusing on that. I'm sure we'll discuss more on that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. All right, so look, folks, let's face it, right? We're going to get into the geotechnical stuff here. And as long as there have been, site and civil software systems out there on the market, the geotech folks have just been the forgotten stepchild of our industry. They've had to make do with tools like Civil 3D, which, while it's a great and powerful tool, they aren't really designed for the subsurface worlds in which the geo folks tend to live. Most civil systems out there are focused on, top surface modeling, right? Roads and related site design tools and parcels and so on. And whenever we needed to work with below grade strata, we could fudge a bit with different surfaces and copying survey points and shifting datums to get close, but they were time consuming and very often clunky workarounds. There really haven't been any high-end systems that address geotechnical needs in a productive and intuitive way, right? Especially ones that would integrate directly with the standard civil system like Civil 3D that we all use every single day. Well, and at least that's true until now, right? And that's why Tim and Ramesh are going to tell us about the Geotechnical Modeler for Civil 3D 2022 today. So Tim, can you kind of give our listeners an overview of the modeler? What it does and who it's meant for?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. Ramesh is definitely the key guy in this whole topic, but yeah. So it's no secret that pretty much just about any project requires some sort of geotechnical analysis with it, right? And so this new geotechnical modeler helps engineers and designers to really easily visualize and analyze that data directly in the context of their Civil 3D model. So currently it's compatible with AGS and CSV, which, they're commonly used formats throughout the industry. And so with this module, when you import the geotechnical data, the module lets you create surfaces from the strata automatically, which is just awesome. Mm-hmm. And it also has the ability to analyze that imported data in either 2D format as stick logs or in 3D as the in-context boreholes. And then the key thing to remember here is that the module is really tightly integrated with Civil 3D, so you'll be working with really familiar tools that you work with every day, and same thing with like the Civil 3D objects and the styles. So it's all in a very familiar format that you'll be working with, the same stuff that you work with every day in Civil 3D.
Nice. All right, so Ramesh, since you're the man here, so why don't you tell us what makes the Geotechnical Modeler such an important tool, and what brought Autodesk to decide to pursue it and develop it the way that you guys have?
Absolutely. You rightly mentioned, Jim. The geotechnical modeler is one of geotechnical data. The division is one of those things a little bit obscure for the regular people. It's kind of it's funny to say that it's a normal human tendency. If you don't see something, we feel it's not important. In this, it's literally true. It's buried under the earth. So it's kind of hard for people to understand. Of course, if you're a geotechnical engineer, you obviously know it's the whole world, but others doesn't get it. And it's also funny to think it a different aspect. You see, as much as we love visiting Leaning Tower of Pisa, we don't want to live in one. We don't want that to happen to our home or infrastructure project. It's nice to see, but we definitely don't want that to happen. And that's an exact example why geotechnical is so important. To checking the foundation before building something. It doesn't matter what that something is. It could be a building or the road or the bridge or railroads, anything you want to build. It's better to see what's underneath. Will it hold it or not? All those things comes into picture. It's vital for its success. And we understand that. Of course, we are from civil engineering aspect of Autodesk. We understand that. And so we want to make sure this aspect is important and critical for successful completion of any infrastructure project. So when we noticed we might have a gap in this area earlier last year, we wanted to act swiftly and get a tool that not only filling the gap, but also making it better for our customers to pursue on the civil engineering part. That's the reason we added it.
Okay, good answer. I love your statement there. I used to work with a civil engineer, Ramesh, who always used to say, when an architect does his job well, everybody goes, ooh, look how beautiful. He says, when a civil engineer does his job well, no one ever sees it. So it's a good point, right? We don't see what's under our feet. So, all right. So, geotechnical work, it has its own set of standards and display options that are actually pretty consistent throughout the U.S. We're all used to, looking and working with, boreholes and stacks and strip diagrams and strata maps and so on. And the industry kind of has its own conventions for displaying subsurface information in understandable ways. But, for decades, a lot of that has had to be drawn manually. I actually spent a lot of time earlier in my career using, just plain old vanilla AutoCAD, drafting strip diagrams and manually sketching out profiles to show the strata and so on. And the Geotechnical Modeler automates all of that, which is a huge, huge benefit to anybody working in the geo world. So it's an amazing product. I really like this. So Rocco, how many of our clients are involved in the geo environmental mining type of work, right? That subsurface stuff that you think can see a real benefit from this system?
Oh yeah, we're definitely talking to people. I mean, all over the country who are. I'd say out of those areas, probably mining is the least, and that's kind of a little bit of a political issue, and I think an area that kind of
no
expands and contracts. But the other two areas are definitely in touch with folks who are involved for sure.
Okay, so we got a lot of folks who'll be interested in this. This is awesome. So
yeah,
Ramesh, in terms of the tools in the Geotechnical Modeler, right? What can it do to simplify people's work, and does it work in the 2D world, the 3D world, or both?
Absolutely. Actually, you answered it. One of the key thing is the simplify part here. Compared to other tools in the market, the geotechnical modeler is intended to do exactly what is needed for a subsurface modeling. If I'm an engineer, I have some data. If you're a geotechnical engineer, it's straightforward, right? You know exactly what data you're getting in. You have all the information there. You know the field in and out, so you know what you're doing. But not exactly all the time. A geotechnical engineer will be creating the drawing. Maybe it's coming from already a transportation engineer or someone. So it's how to make it easy so that they understand what needs to be done, and the software just does it with asking enough number of questions, not too many, not too less. As the saying goes, keep things simple, but not too simple. So that's finding that trying to find that fine line is a hard part. So that's exactly what geotechnical model is trying to do. In one way, we really want to help the geotechnical engineers to get the data and do things automatically. Like you mentioned, we don't want people to go through manual drafting, strict diagram, and things like that. But at the same time, we want to democratize the geotechnical data so that all civil engineers can just get the data and use it in their infrastructure projects, and it starts with the right step. So that's the key is one of the things we were trying to achieve in the Geotechnical Modeler. And on this tone, we made the workflow much simple, and the stylization and visualization of the entities you import, like it could be a borehole data or the subsurfaces you create, those stylizations are automated. So you don't have to step in too much. You can always customize it. I'll come to that in a second. And you can also create a 2D plan view and a 3D visualization options as well. So those are the things that makes it much easy for user to work with. While we are designing this, we did not forget about the advanced users. So everything you bring in, they are Civil 3D profiles. They are Civil 3D Cocoa points and surfaces. So any advanced user or the intermediate users can also go and change the styles the way they want to see, the way their organization want to see, or their customer want to see, whatever. You can actually customize it and make it happen. So that simplification, and it works on both 2D and 3D aspect, and get the workflow done in a very sequential manner, is some of the things we believe the Geotechnical Modeler is unique in the industry.
Nice. All right. So Tim, for the folks out there, why don't you let us know who has access right now or shortly to the Geotechnical Modeler, right? And is it part of their subscription plan, or is it a standalone purchase? And what do they need to do to get it and get it working?
So the good news is that it's included with your Civil 3D subscription, both as part of the AEC collection and also for standalone Civil 3D, which we thought was pretty important. As we all talked about earlier, pretty much just about every project requires some sort of geotechnical work, right? So we saw this as a very critical tool for Civil 3D. So we wanted to make sure that it was available to as many Civil 3D customers as possible. So not an additional purchase, that kind of thing. It's available on manage.autodesk.com within your account or as part of the desktop app. So keep your eyes open for it. It's available now. We just released it, I think, earlier this month. So it's good to go. I suppose about the only caveat that I can say is that it's compatible for Civil 3D 2022 at this point. We're going to make it available for future versions of Civil 3D, but prior versions of Civil 3D will continue to have to use the legacy geotechnical module that we used to have. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, good answer. All right, folks, so let's take a quick break here to hear from today's sponsor, who I'm going to hassle Tim and tell him again, it is still not Autodesk, Tim.
I'm working on it.
You got to hook me up, brother. You got to hook me up. All right, folks. And when we get back, I want to get into some detail on how the Geo Modeler actually works. All right, so stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by Zen-Tech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at Zen-Tech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right? CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing and implementing and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from Zen-Tech Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast, where we're talking with Tim Yarris and Ramesh Sridharan, who, again, I know I still butchered his name, from Autodesk today, about the Geotechnical Modeler plugin for Civil 3D. Now, look, I haven't actually worked hands-on with the modeler yet myself, but I have seen a number of videos on it, and I have to say that it looks like a remarkably simple interface that generates some really great visual outputs of your soil and boring samples in just a few seconds. And I think, as we kind of talked about in the first half of the show, I love that it can output to both 2D and 3D standards, right? So you get just an absolute ton of options for how to best communicate your subsurface findings. So Ramesh, what do you think is the most important tool in the modeler, right? Which feature, right, really gets kind of like the most that wow factor when you show it to your clients?
Gotcha. That's a tough one to answer actually, because it depends on the persona who I talk to, right? Some of the customers, when I first showed it, the simplification of the workflow, like we talked about before, was the wow thing, because otherwise they have to jump through multiple hoops just to import the data. When they saw that literally like 1 or 2 clicks, I can get the data in and filter it and start using it as a focal points, was definitely a wow factor for them. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the import step, right? And then the simple surface generation got some good praise too. Then we have a complete, we call it a subsurface profile. So if you have alignment, obviously you have it's a whole geotechnical field, right? I have multiple subsurface stratum, and I have the boreholes, and I have the alignments. I obviously want to see what's beneath those alignments. That's the whole point of creating those surface. We make that much simpler as well, or as simple as we can make, because it involves a lot of critical things. But even so, there we made it some of the default settings will work for about 80 to 90% of the time, and remaining 10% customer can customize the way they want. That really got a wow factor for some of the advanced users and saying, hey, this is what I want to see, I'm seeing it, which is which sounds like a very simple common sense thing, but getting it from an advanced user is actually a great thing to hear. And the other one, we had a couple of webinars on this one. The one thing that shined out is we can now export a 3D boreholes and 3D subsurfaces out of Civil 3D, and you can take it to anywhere. And the workflow, one of the customers suggested is, now I can take it into, again, in this case, Infraworks, and I can actually show my stakeholders, these are the stuff below the ground in that site area, for example, and these are the things we should be look after even before the project starts. And that kind of having a 3D visualization, like a mesh, and ability to rotate around, kind of resonates well with the non-technical stakeholders to understand what it is, which was a big deal before. Otherwise, they have to literally show in a Civil 3D view or a CAD view or something. Anytime you show someone a CAD view, it looks like too much detail. It's a too much technical aspect. You have to be a smart person to see it. It kind of have people have that mentality in the back of the head. But when you look at the graphics, 3D graphics, people can understand it. They can relate to it. And so ability to have this data that can flow beyond the Civil 3D usage is one of the other things that got the wow factor.
Nice. And I agree with you 100%. I think those of us, guys like you and me and Tim, we live in the civil world every day, and we're so used to those graphics. We think everybody can just look at it and understand it. And that's not the case. Being able to convert this and show it, like you said, easily in something like Infraworks, where it's just, native, natural, images and videos that people can understand. I think that's a huge, huge plus. So, all right. So Tim, let's wake you up over there. So who are your competitors, if there really are any, in the geotechnical market, right? And where do you think that the Autodesk Geotech Modeler really differentiates itself?
So I'd say probably the B team is our primary competitor in this space, right? So over the last few years, they've made some pretty significant investments in the geotechnical space, so we've definitely had our eye on that. Mm-hmm. So where the Autodesk Geotechnical Modeler really shines is, as I think Ramesh has mentioned, I mean, its ability to consume common data formats that use the geotechnical data in a really meaningful way in the Civil 3D model. So the module produces data that's, again, it's not just dumb objects within your drawing. The data's live, and it continues to interact with the other data in your model dynamically as things change. So it's just the overall just continuous interaction with your Civil 3D model that really shines.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that, right? Because that's probably the area, in what I've seen in the videos, right, for this package that really impressed me, right, is that, the geodata, like Tim was saying, once it's imported, it's dynamic, right? So, it works and reacts almost exactly the same way traditional Civil 3D points and surfaces and so on do, right? So, when your depth and your elevations or your locations are modified or updated, right, the profiles and the strata surfaces are automatically updating themselves, right? The things that we've kind of learned to take for granted in Civil 3D, that's brand new for a lot of the geotechnical guys to have that. And I think that's a massive, massive time saver over having to go back and manually adjust profiles and so on every single time, you get more data from the field or something changes. That simple fact alone, I think, justifies any investment in time needed to kind of get your folks up to speed on the Geotech Modeler. Ramesh, you've mentioned it a couple of times, right? In terms of the customization, but what is the level, I guess, of customization available for geodata with this modeler, right? Is there any capacity, right, to add things like allowable contaminant data for environmental work, or is there any capacity to add custom properties, kind of like we can do for parcels and other civil 3D objects?
Cool. That's a loaded question. First part, on the customization part, yeah, absolutely. So user can customize many things, even starting from the database storage. This was one of the things we received as a feedback from the customers on when I import the data. See, you always think as importing what could go wrong, right? I'm just importing the data. But in the geotechnical modeler, it's slightly different. So when I import it, I'm not the only guy who will be using this. There are my colleagues, there are multiple people who are working on it, they will be using it too. So it should be shareable, but shareable enough, not just the XYZ points, all the attributes that come with it, what stratum and what not, all those things. So it needs to be a shareable database, but I don't want to go sit with my IT to set up the database and permission to make it use it. So that's exactly what we talked before. It should be simple, but not too simple or not too hard. We have to find that fine line. That's exactly what we aspire to do in Geotechnical Modeler. So it works as a SQL storage database, and currently it just installs along with the user folder, but user can customize it. Many of our customers, actually, what they're doing is they change that folder location to a network location, for example. So it's a very simple change, but it has a great impact where now any data is stored, it will be stored in a database that is in a common network storage throughout my organization. Anyone using Civil 3D, now they can import it, connect to the database, and get the data, what I already imported, and take it into their drawing and do stuff with it. Simple change makes a big impact on the workflow part. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. We added something called the customizable hatch patterns. When you see the profile, all the YouTube videos, the webinars we show on the Geotechnical Modeler, you see the profiles with the patterns that can be customizable. We understand what we come up with as a default one is not most likely, and never it's something exactly what customer want. They want to change it based on their customer organization. So now you can customize those hatch patterns as well, and you can also update some of the style template drawings to make sure it fits into your template and so on. So fundamental parts that are needed, we made it default. At the same time, we opened it up so the user can customize the way they want. So all those in details are there in our documentation as well. I know I went through a little bit fast, but user can get those information. Okay. On the additional one, adding the custom data properties and things, that is something we're working on. So now user can actually bring in the custom data. Since we are importing the AGS format, technically it brings in all the data what's in the format in there. We are trying to expand it more on a simple CSV customizable as well. That is something work is going on in the mill.
Okay, excellent, good. So we'll look for that in the future releases. So all right, so Tim, talking about future releases, right? What's kind of the future, since you're the roadmap guy, right? What is the future for the Geotechnical Modeler? I mean, other than what we just talked about, what are the new cool features that you're kind of planning for future updates to this, or at least the ones that you can tell our listeners about?
Yeah, sure. So we definitely have an eye on improving the Geotechnical Modeler over time. We try to do our best to do that with all of our products, and this is definitely no exception. So actually, I'm going to kind of divert a little bit, and I'm going to kind of go a little bit more broad with my answer to this question, because I'm going to put in a plug for something else that we have kind of that we've been working on for quite some time. So if you want to get an idea of what's under consideration for the Geotechnical Modeler or any of Autodesk's civil infrastructure products, we actually have a public roadmap that we have available online. So if you do a quick Google search for Autodesk Civil Infrastructure Product Roadmap, you'll find a really cool interactive view of what's on our radar across the board for civil infra. Cool thing about the roadmap that you'll see is you can actually pick different ideas to dig in to see more detail about them. So exactly if like a title of one of the cards that you'll see up there isn't super clear to you. You'll be able to pick it and kind of get a little bit more information about it. And then the really cool thing is if you create a free Trello account, which is the tool Trello is the tool that we use to host this public roadmap. If you create a free Trello account, you can actually vote on the items that are most important to you. So if you see an thing up there that says, hey, I want to be able to create a label that has Rocco's picture on it.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
But if you do, you can pick that and then you can vote for it. And if Rocco's picture label gets a gazillion votes, then that'll kind of bump its priority up in our product roadmap. So definitely want to get people's feedback on just what it is that we have under consideration. And we want to be a bit more transparent with customers about kind of what it is that we have under consideration. So what's up on the roadmap isn't necessarily, it's a work in progress. It's not a guarantee of anything that you're going to see all these things in Civil 3D or InfraWorks, but it's definitely a really good view of what we have on the radar, and it lets you kind of give a bit more feedback as far as like what's important to you. So just wanted to give that plug.
It's a good plug. It's a good plug. Just please, people, do not vote for Rocco's ugly mug. We don't want him on the next version. No good.
You know, you're going to be surprised. I'm telling you, you're going to fall off your chair.
Listen, I've seen you before. There's no surprises, brother. All right. So, well, since we woke you up there anyway, Rocco, let's ask you a question. So, look, Tim and the guys, over at Autodesk, they've actually they've added really just a couple of really great plugins for 2022, right? The Geotech Modeler we're talking about today, but we've also talked before about the grading optimization plugin and the Project Explorer. All are really impressive. And what's the response been like for clients in the civil space with these new add-ins? I mean, are they jumping on the bandwagon, or are they kind of dragging their heels on learning them and getting them implemented?
It depends on the size of the firm, to be honest with you. I mean, and I guess it makes logical sense, right? I mean, you guys have heard we've had Todd Rogers with Walter P. Moore on the podcast a number of times, and he often talks about how they're current and they're adopting all these new features. As you move to your middle-sized firm, I often hear a lot of times that folks that they're implementing the new features every 2 years. That's when they're kind of on a roadmap to get current that way. And then when you get to your smaller firms, well, you're lucky if they're on, Civil 3D 2020 at this point, because a lot are so far behind for a lot of different reasons, right? I mean, they have less resources, less money. They just can't dedicate the time to being 100% current. But I kind of think that with a lot of these modules that are coming out now, Project Explorer, grading optimization, the Geotechnical Modeler, I think it's going to kind of like propel people, depending upon what you're doing, right? It's going to kind of make people step up the urgency to adopt the newer technology. So it's kind of all over the map.
Yeah, and I will say this. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think that those smaller companies, I think, are making a mistake, because when you get these tools, the big reason why they don't do the updates is that they're busy. They've got so much work. There's only so much time in a day. But these tools that Tim and his group and Ramesh are putting out here they're massive time savers. I think the people who don't do it, right, you said, are the small companies, are the people who need it most, to be honest with you, right? Big companies, they got 30 engineers. They can divvy out the work. You got 1 or 2 engineers. These tools go such a long way into moving you to that next tier in your company's growth. So,
and they're already paying for it, right? Yeah. I mean, it's part of the annual subscriptions that they're paying for. Right. So put it to use.
And I mean, that's not even just, we've even seen that with like some of the larger companies, for that matter. I mean, and not necessarily for the reason that they don't want to adopt things, but I mean, a lot of times they have like project requirements where the primary consultant or the primary team that's working on the project, like they require, like, you must use Civil 3D 2018, and it's just like,
yeah,
there's so much better like functionality and like the performance and the new tools and the more modern versions of Civil 3D. It breaks my heart to see people that they're still using 16 and 18, and there's better things out there, folks.
Yeah. And it's funny, but you're absolutely right. And I was doing a consulting engagement yesterday, kind of a needs assessment with a client who has, right, 2018, 2020, 2021, and 2022 installed on multiple stations throughout. And I'm like, why? Why don't you just move to one setup? He's like, well, we would love to, but we've got to work with clients, and the clients insist that our deliverables have to be. It's like, yeah, that's very frustrating. So,
yep, I hear you.
And also, it's not just on the version also, right? When especially when the customers have the whole collections, they did not know what other products they have. I literally saw, for talking to one of the customers, and he was asking a suggestion from me when I giving I think it was a geotechnical modeler discussion. He said that, well, we are thinking of buying a visualization software. What would you suggest? I'm like, you already have it. It's part of your collection. Like, yeah, they have Infraworks and they have other products in Autodesk too. Like, oh, I did not know that. I have to check it out.
Yeah.
So it's just not just a version. A lot of other products also there. I think it's a little bit of education, a little bit of showing them what else they can do. It kind of role from both sides.
Yeah, no, it absolutely goes a long way. You see that, I see that a lot. The IT guys are responsible for purchasing, so they buy the AEC collection because it's a great deal, and then they install Civil 3D on the user stations, and they move on, and no one knows that they've got all those other systems available. It's crazy.
Right. Well, one thing that I will kind of mention, I mean, just a quick reminder of the fact that, I mean, again, we've recognized that people have to use multiple versions over different projects and stuff like that, but just one thing that we've done to try to keep people at least a little bit less of a headache when they have to move projects back and forth and everything is the whole idea that, I mean, the DWG format has been consistent since 2018 for Civil 3D.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been doing everything that we can to keep that drawing format consistent, just so that you have that compatibility between versions. Because, I mean, we know it's painful to move projects forward or backward, and I mean, just anything we can do to smooth that out a little bit, and the DWG format's a big part of that for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so look, folks, listeners to the podcast here, they know that I can give Autodesk a hard time on some of their systems and processes. Particularly since Zentech isn't an Autodesk partner. Though, Tim, I'm going to remind both you and Ramesh that we would like to be, and you're not hooking us up. Talked to you last time. So look, generally I don't really worry too much about mouthing off when I run up against things that I find frustrating from the Autodesk stable, right? But to be fair, Autodesk and the hardworking folks over there, though, when you're the big kid on the block for a dozen different industries, I know it's not always easy to be responsive to every user problem, right? That we all wish we could get resolved, and I get that, I do. I will say though that when you get tools like the Geotechnical Modeler, they're really a big feather in Autodesk cap. I mean, I love it when you can get a product that has a simple interface that generates excellent output with really easy to learn and understand features. Like Ramesh was saying, it's really meant to handle everything from draftspeople and lower level designers all the way up through advanced geotech engineers. And it's just easy to use, right? And I've been using Civil 3D, right, since before it was publicly released. And I still train people on it, and I work with it every single day. And I really think that the new modules that you guys are integrating into the 2022 release have really been, honestly, some of the best work we've seen come in, for the Civil 3D system in a long time. I think you guys are doing a great job with that. So kudos to you. Tim, what would you like our listeners to know about the Geotechnical Modeler that I wasn't smart enough to ask you about?
So I don't know if I'm smart enough to dig into that, but I mean, again, you asked a lot of great questions, and I mean, Ramesh, more importantly, dug really deep into kind of expanding on what the tool does and where it really shines. And so, I mean, all I can do really is just reiterate that the Geotechnical Modeler is yet another powerful tool for us that we're planning on making even more powerful as time goes on. So that's all I got.
All right, excellent. All right, so Ramesh, I'm going to kind of ask you the same question, but I guess with more technical focus in terms of the tools and operational side. What else do you think people need to understand about the Geotechnical Modeler?
Absolutely. I mean, there are more nitty-gritty details, right? It's easy to show on a demo than a podcast. So I think we covered the major aspects of it. I would really recommend the audience to go look at the YouTube video or the webinar to get more details on it. But from the things we haven't covered on one part is this is not like a last version of Geotechnical Modeler. This is the first release. We want to make sure we set up the workflow easily, and the workflows and the tools that works with it kind of chimes with users' expectations. Then we can add more bells and whistles to it. We can actually add more capabilities to it. And we strongly believe in agile development, not just for internal development process, even working with the customers. We want to make sure we set up the framework, and once it clicks, then we can add more to it instead of adding everything and then we have to strip off and change it. That's a lot of work. And Geotechnical is a good example for that. So we're not saying this release has all the answers for your question, but it's just the first step. It's just the first release. And we have more capabilities we're planning on, like better surface generation and better customized data, like you mentioned, Jim, on bringing the borehole data and things like that. But your fundamental requirements for getting your borehole data or the surface generation, this tool will help you and move forward. So if you have any questions or any feedback on improvement of this tool, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, Tim and I, or always with open ears to hear what you guys have to say for.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right, folks. So I'm going to let you all get back to work so you can all go out and download the Geotechnical Modeler as soon as possible. But before we do go, I actually want to thank Tim and Ramesh for being here with us today. And I think that we can get them to come back again, if Rocco and his scary picture idea hasn't scared them, too badly.
That was kind of my idea.
Yeah, that's true, but I like to blame Rocco. It's more fun. So, all right, because actually we've been talking with these guys about maybe doing a series of these talks together, right, to kind of highlight some of the new modules that are coming for Autodesk Civil 3D, their system, over the next few months. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll get you more important site, civil, and infrastructure info in the weeks to come. Other than that, Tim, Ramesh, thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. And everybody, we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net. Or you could even call us, 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.